all the candidates who have been shortlisted in that report should be considered as equal and qualified to serve and fit to serve within the East African Legislative Assembly. The fact that a candidate has not served in any parliament before should never act as a bar towards them ascending to the East African Legislative Assembly. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would urge members to vote guided by their own conscience, knowing that the list of the members who should be voted in to serve in that assembly should, number one, have a diversity within the Kenyan communities. It should also take into account gender considerations. It should be balanced in terms of gender. And I would actually encourage the members to consider this time around accepting women more, much more women than men, because all the other parliaments have more men than women. Thank you.
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuunga mkono ripoti ambayo imeletwa bungeni ya uteuzi wa wagombea wa ubunge wa East Africa Mashariki. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hakika wote ambao wameteuliwa ni watu ambao wana tajriba, lakini ni vizuri tuchague watu ambao watakuwa na uwezo wa kusongeza mbele bunge hili la East Africa. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia katika zile taasisi za bunge za East African Cooperation, mahakama ya East Africa, Mheshimiwa Spika, imefanya maamuzi ambayo yamesaidia masuala ya haki za binadamu na masuala ya human rights katika maeneo yetu kwa sehemu kubwa kuliko yale ambayo yameweza kufanywa na bunge hili. Na yote imetokamana na masuala kwamba wale wanaokwenda kutuwakilisha ni watu ambao wanakwenda kutafuta kazi, sio watu wanaokwenda kuangalia yale masuala ambayo yanaangaziwa na bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, nimebahatika kusafiri kwenda Zanzibar na Pemba mwezi uliokwisha, na nikaona kwamba kuna mambo mengi ambayo bunge hili linaweza kuangazia ili kurahisisha biashara baina ya Kenya na Tanzania, ama biashara baina ya nchi tatu nchi saba za Afrika Mashariki. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hivyo wale ambao tutawachagua, Mheshimiwa Spika, siku ya Alhamisi lazima wawe ni watu ambao wana maono ya kupeleka bunge hili mbele, sio kutafutia watu kazi. Hata kama mtu ndio mara yake ya kwanza kuchaguliwa, Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini ikiwa ana maono ya kupeleka bunge hili mbele, anafaa kupewa kazi hiyo. Kuna wengi ambao wamechaguliwa na Mheshimiwa katika bunge hili la Senate mwaka huu hawajakuwa maseneta, lakini tumeona zile kazi ambazo wameweza kufanya zinaridhisha kwamba wamechaguliwa kusaidia nchi hii kwenda mbele. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also like to support. We know that when we talk about East African community, the thoughts of Pan-Africanism are allied. I would wish to ask the members also, when they go to elections, that they should look, and I want to repeat this, look at people who will be able to put the face of Kenya in that parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank all members in this committee who assisted me as a co-chair to make this report. And Mr. Speaker, my apologies to the House. I was not there, and Senator Beatrice Ogola was very kind to move it on my behalf. Mr. Speaker, I had to go to my county having a visitor in the name of Bill Gates, who one time when in Seattle going as parliament, I visited his office, made an invitation, and luckily he came to Kenya, and therefore my apologies to the House. The main issue in this particular report we found could be ideal for consideration in future. First of all, whatever happens to a single state happened to all member states. And secondly, one time when this process was abused by the state of Kenya, there was a court case at the Eastern African Court of Justice. And I was lucky to be one of the lawyers there. And the court directed and ended up with what we have now. That's why we have to choose out of three. Instead of select, there has to be an election, Mr. Speaker. But then we have to balance gender, youth, and also continuity, Mr. Speaker. One of the problems with the Kenyan election has been that we remove everybody And then we have no institutional memory in Yela. So I'll urge members while making a vote and supporting this to look at that consideration so that we can have continuity in the Eastern African Legislative Assembly. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sigei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the report. And I would love, Mr. Speaker, from the very onset to indicate to the House that the East Africa Legislative Assembly has attracted a good number of people who are, I believe, all qualified. From the report, Mr. Speaker, 348 people applied, 69 were nominated, 9 are required to be elected tomorrow. I believe, Mr. Speaker, this House will be capable of picking from among the list that we've been given people who are qualified, who will push the agenda of Kenya in the East Africa Legislative Assembly. I urge the members from this House to do that which is objective tomorrow when it comes to voting, so that we send the team on Thursday. Pardon me, Mr. Speaker, the election will be on Thursday, I believe. And Mr. Speaker, I was giving an indication that I urge this House to send to the East Africa Legislative Assembly people who are qualified to advance the interest of this country. And Mr. Speaker, as I conclude on my support to the report, the committee has proposed that a framework for formal campaigns be placed in the 2017 rules for this particular position. And I urge that the House, once it is done with the election process, can also formulate a process where candidates can be able to have formal processes to conduct their campaigns, so that they make it easy, so that we also can get an opportunity to interrogate whatever they are seeking to go and do for us as a country in the East Africa Legislative Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.